Let's practice applying our exponent properties involving the product and power property. So we have the product of powers as well as the power of a power property that we're going to be practicing here. Let's jump right into it. So to get started for each of these, what we're going to do is we will always start where we see the parentheses. That's going to come first, and we're going to apply the power of a power property. So that little 2 on the outside is going to be multiplied by each of the exponents for the bases you see inside the parentheses. So right away what we're going to do is let's just copy down this x to the 4th power times y to the 5th power in the beginning. So this is going to stay exactly the same. It's going to be x to the 4th power times this y to the 5th power. Okay, don't do anything with those just yet. And we're going to multiply this by, and let's see, we have this x to the 3rd power, but let's go ahead and see if we can just multiply this 3 and 2 together now. 3 times 2, that's going to be 6. That's going to be x to the 6th power. And then we have this y, right? So we have this y, and that is raised to the 4th power. So we multiply this 4 and 2 using that power of a power property. That's now going to be y to the 8th power, okay? Following, what we're going to do here is let's go ahead and use the product property of our powers. So we can go ahead and multiply this x to the 4th times x to the 6th. Remember, when we do that, we can add these little exponents of 6 and 4. If we do that, we're going to get x to the 10th power. And then what we're going to do is do the same thing with the y. So these have the same base, so y to the 5th times y to the 8th. We can apply that product of powers property and then add these exponents of 5 plus 8, and that's going to be 13. So our simplified expression here is going to be x to the 10th power times y to the 13th power. All right, for number 2, check this one out. We have parentheses, so we're going to apply that power of a power property first over here, and then we're going to use that product property and multiply that by what we have over to the right. Okay, so let's identify our bases. So we have bases of a and b that we eventually want to combine here. So let's start where we have the parentheses and use that power of a power property. So this a to the 3rd power, we're going to raise that to the 2nd power, so 3 times 2, that's going to be 6. So it's going to be a to the 6th power, okay? And then we have this b, right? So this is going to be b to the 5th power, but we have 2 of them, so 5 times 2, that's going to be 10. So that's that power of a power property, so it's b to the 10th power. Now we're going to go ahead and just copy down the rest of this. We're going to multiply by a to the 4th power and multiply by b to the 3rd power. So we didn't really do anything yet, but now we can apply our product of powers property. So we can multiply a to the 6th times a to the 4th since they have the same base. We can add this 6 and 4 to get 10, so that's going to be a to the 10th power. And then multiplying our b to the 10th power by b to the 3rd power, we can go ahead and add these exponents of 3 plus 10, and that's going to be 13. So we're going to say times b to the 13th power. For number 3, we got to leave this first part alone on the left because there's no parentheses. Let's start over here to the right because we can use that power of a power property. Start by identifying our bases here. So I'm just going to copy down this x to the 2nd power in the beginning and y to the 4th power. I recommend doing the same thing of just writing it down. Then we're going to multiply this by, well, we have x to the 4th power, but that's being raised to the 2nd power, so we can say 2 times 4, that's going to be 8. So this is going to be times x to the 8th power. And then we have this y to the 7th power to the 2nd power, so 7 times 2, that's that power of a power property, that's going to be y to the 14th power. Now to use our product of powers property, we can go ahead and multiply x squared times x to the 8th power, and the shortcut is we can add that 2 and 8 together. So it's going to be x to the 10th power, okay? And then we're going to multiply this y to the 4th power times y to the 14th power, since they have the same base as well. And we can go ahead and add that 4 and 14 together to get 18, so it's going to be y to the 18th power. Here's number 4. For number 4, let's go ahead and take care of our power of a power property first over here to the left, but let's identify our bases first. Our different bases here are going to be a and b, so let's start over on the left side. So we have this a to the 3rd power that's being raised to the 2nd power, so 3 times 2, that power of power property is going to be a to the 6th power. We'll start with that. And then we have this b to the 5th power, but that's going to be 2 times 5 if we multiply those exponents. 5 times 2 is 10, so it's going to be times b to the 10th power. And then we're going to multiply this by the a to the 4th power that we didn't do anything with, and multiply that by b to the 3rd power, which we haven't done anything with either. Okay, so next what we're going to do here is multiply this a to the 6th power times a to the 4th power. We can go ahead and add those exponents. 6 plus 4 is going to be 10, so we have a to the 10th power. And then we can multiply b to the 10th power times b to the 3rd power. 10 plus 3 is going to be 13, so it's going to be times b to the 13th power. For number 5, let's start over here on the right side with the power of a power property. There we can see what our same bases are going to be. We have x and y. Let's leave this x squared and y to the 9th power alone for now, and let's go ahead and take care of this to the right. So x to the 5th power, that has an exponent of 5. That's being raised to the 2nd power, so 5 times 2, power of a power property, it's 10. That's going to be x to the 10th power. And then we have this y to the 3rd power, raised to the 2nd power, so 3 times 2 is going to be 6. So that's going to be times y to the 6th power. Okay. So next we're going to go ahead and multiply x to the 2nd times x to the 10th. We can go ahead and add 2 plus 10. That's going to be 12. So we have x to the 12th power. And then we can multiply y to the 9th times y to the 6th. We can add 9 plus 6 together. That's going to be y to the 15th power. For number 6, let's focus on the left side here first because we can use that power of a power property. Here we have identified our same bases. So let's start with this a to the 6th power raised to the 2nd power. We're going to do 6 times 2, that's going to be 12. So starting off, we're going to have a to the 12th power. And then we have this b to the 3rd power, but we have 2 of them. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. So that's going to be b to the 6th power. Then we're going to follow up by multiplying by this a to the 2nd power that we haven't done anything with, and multiply that by b to the 9th power. Okay. Now using our product of powers property, we can multiply a to the 12th and a to the 2nd. 12 plus 2 is going to be 14, so it's going to be a to the 14th power. And then we can multiply b to the 6th times b to the 9th, and we can add 6 plus 9, and that's 15. So we have times b to the 15th power. For number 7, we're going to do the same process here. Just notice that we have negative exponents, otherwise everything's the same. So let's go ahead and start with the power of a power property first, and then we'll deal with our product of powers second. Okay, so first we're going to leave the first part alone. So we'll have this x to the negative 4th power times that y to the 5th power. Let's just leave that alone for now and deal with the second part. So we have x to the 2nd power, that's raised to the 2nd power, so 2 times 2, that's going to be 4. So that's going to be x to the 4th power. And then we have this y to the negative 6th power times this little 2 up here, so it's negative 6 times 2, that's going to be negative 12. So let's go ahead and say that's going to be y to the negative 12th power. Okay, so we just use the power of a power property, multiplying those little exponents together, and then multiplying x to the negative 4 times x to the positive 4, we can add those exponents of negative 4 and positive 4 to get 0. Now keep in mind, x to the 0th power is just equal to 1, so we don't need to write it. Okay, but then if we go ahead and multiply this y to the 5th power times y to the negative 12th power, adding 5 plus negative 12, that's negative 7. So our answer here is going to be y to the negative 7th power. Okay, so again, if you multiply this x to the negative 4 times x to the positive 4, it just equals 1. So we don't need to write it because 1 times anything by the identity property of multiplication is just 1. And again, the reason why we don't have any x's in our answer is because x to the negative 4 times x to the positive 4, it just becomes x to the 0th power, which is equal to 1. So 1 times that y to the negative 7th power would just be y to the negative 7th power. Okay, here's number 8. For number 8, let's go ahead and just start on the left side here because we're going to use that power of a power property. Here we've identified our common bases here. So starting off, we have a to the negative 5th power, and that's raised to the 2nd power, so we can multiply the exponents. Negative 5 times 2 is going to be negative 10. So we're going to have a to the negative 10th power. And then we're going to have this b to the 2nd power. We're going to multiply 2 times 2 is 4. So again, that's going to be b to the 4th power. Okay, let's not do anything just yet with this next part. So just going to copy that a to the negative 2nd power and then times b to the positive 7th power. Okay, leave that alone for now. Now let's use the product of powers property. So anything with the same base we can multiply and then add their exponents as a shortcut. So multiplying these a's, negative 10 plus negative 2 is negative 12. It's going to be a to the negative 12th power. And then for the b's, what are we going to write? Well, for the b's, b to the 4th times b to the 7th. 4 plus 7 is going to be 11, so it's going to be b to the 11th power. Here's number 9. For number 9, let's focus here on the right side using the power of powers property. And here are our same bases, so let's just keep the x to the 3rd power in the beginning the same, and y to the 8th power. Let's just not do anything with those yet. We'll take care of those in just a moment. And then over here, we have x to the 3rd power raised to the 3rd power, so 3 times 3, that's going to be 9. So we're going to have x to the 9th power. And then we have this y to the 2nd power raised to the 3rd power, so 2 times 3 is going to be 6, so that's going to be y to the 6th power. Okay. Next, we can go ahead and use the product of powers property. So x to the 3 times x to the 9, adding 3 plus 9, that's going to be 12. So that's going to be x raised to the 12th power. And then we have this y to the 8th times y to the 6th, adding 8 plus 6 together, that's going to be 14. So that's going to be y to the 14th power. For number 10, I've already gone ahead and identified the common bases. Let's go ahead and use this power of a power property first here. So a to the 6th power raised to the 3rd power, multiplying 6 times 3, that's going to be 18. We're going to go ahead and say that's going to be a to the 18th power first, okay? And then we're going to multiply that by what? We have b to the 5th power, so 5 times 3, because we have 3 of those, that's going to be b to the 15th power, okay? Following that, we're going to multiply that by the a to the 4th power that we haven't done anything with, and then multiply that by b to the 7th power, okay? Using the product of powers property here, a to the 18th power times a to the 8th power, adding 18 plus 4, that's going to be 22. So that's going to be a to the 22nd power. And then multiplying that by the b's, well, let's say we have b to the 15th power times b to the 7th power. We can add 15 plus 7 using the product of powers property. 15 plus 7 is 22. So we have b to the 22nd power. For number 11, here are our common bases. Let's start over here to the right and use our power of a power property. So first we have to just copy down what we have on the left side. So we're not going to touch that first part. We're going to leave it alone and just write x to the 5th power multiplied by y to the negative 3rd power. Okay, we'll deal with that in just a little bit. Times, and then let's see, we have x to the 5th power raised to the 3rd power. So 5 times 3, that's going to be 15. So we're going to go ahead and write x to the 15th power. And then next we have this y to the 2nd power to the 3rd power. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. So it's going to be y to the 6th power. Okay. Now product of powers property, x to the 5th times x to the 15th. 5 plus 15 is 20. So that's going to be x to the 20th power. And then we have y. So we have y to the negative 3 times y to the positive 6. Negative 3 plus 6 is going to be positive 3. So it's going to be times y to the positive 3rd power. For number 12, here are our common bases. We have a and b. Let's start over here on the left side because we have a power of a power property. Okay, so first off, we have this a to the 6th power raised to the 3rd power. So we have 3 of these 6's. 6 times 3 is going to be 18. So this is going to be a to the 18th power to start. And then we have this b to the negative 4th power, but we have 3 of those. It's being raised to the 3rd power. So shortcut is 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. So that's going to be b to the negative 12th power. And then we didn't really do anything with this a to the negative 9th or this b to the 5th power yet. So let's just copy that down and use it in our next step. Okay, so it doesn't get too confusing. Let's use our product of powers property now. So a to the 18th times a to the negative 9th. If we multiply those together, we can add these exponents. So 18 plus negative 9 or 18 minus 9 is just 9. So that's going to be a to the 9th power. And then multiplying this b to the negative 12 times b to the positive 5, we can add their exponents of negative 12 plus 5 is negative 7. So we're going to say times b to the negative 7th power. Here's number 13. Here are our common bases, and let's go ahead and start with over here, the power of a power property. So let's see, we are going to have x to the negative 8th power, let's leave that alone, and we have y to the 6th power, and then let's go ahead and multiply here. We have x to the negative 4 to the 4th power, so negative 4 times 4 is going to be negative 16, so it's times x to the negative 16th power. And then we have y to the 9th power to the 4th power, so 4 times 9 is going to be 36, so we have y to the 36th power. Okay, so let's go ahead and now use the product of powers property. So x to the negative 8 times x to the negative 16. We can add negative 8, negative 16, that's negative 24, so it's x to the negative 24th power. And then multiplying y to the 6 times y to the 36, we can add 6 plus 36, and that's going to be 42. So we're going to say it's times y to the 42nd power. In 14, here are our common bases of a and b. Let's focus over here on the left first. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this a to the 5th power, then raise that to the 4th power. We can do that by saying 5 times 4 is going to be 20. So it's going to be a to the 20th power. And then we have this b to the negative 7th to the 4th. So negative 7 times 4 is negative 28. So it's times b to the negative 28th power. And then just multiply by what we haven't used yet. So this a to the 6th power, and then times b to the negative 5th power. Okay, so next what we're going to do is multiply this a to the 20 times a to the 6th, and we can add those exponents of 20 plus 6 to get 26, so that's going to be a to the 26th power. And then multiplying b to the negative 28 times b to the negative 5, we can add these exponents of negative 28 plus negative 5. It's going to be negative 33, so it's going to be times b to the negative 33rd power. All right, in number 15, it looks like we have 3 different bases because we have coefficients as well. So I'll show you what to do there. Again, let's focus over here to the right and deal with that first for those power of a power property, and then we'll deal with the product of powers, okay? So let's start over here to the right. I'm just going to go ahead and copy down that left side because we're not going to use it yet. So I'm going to have 3 multiplied by x to the 2nd power times this y to the 8th power. And let's multiply that by this next part. So we have this 4 raised to the 1st power. There's an invisible little 1. That 1 times the 2 is just going to be 2. So 4 to the 2nd power, or 4 times 4, is going to equal 16. Okay, so it's 4 squared is 16. Then we have x squared. That's being raised to the 2nd power. So 2 times 2 is going to be 4. So it's going to be x to the 4th power. And then finally we have y to the 5th power raised to the 2nd power. So 5 times 2, that's going to be 10. So we have y to the 10th power. Okay, so let's put this all together now and multiply. So we can multiply the coefficients of 3 and 16. That's going to equal 48. And then we can multiply this x to the 2 times x to the 4. Adding 2 plus 4, that's going to be 6. So it's going to be x to the 6th power. And then multiplying y to the 8 times y to the 10. 8 plus 10 is 18, so we're going to have times y to the 18th power. One final practice problem here. We have 3 different bases just like in number 15. Let's focus here on the left side because we have parentheses, so that's a power of a power property first. If we do that, we have this 3 being raised to the exponent of 3 first. So 3 times 3 times 3, that's going to equal 27. So that's going to be our coefficient in the beginning here. Then we have this a to the 5th power raised to the 3rd power. So 5 times 3 is 15. So it's going to be times a to the 15th power. And then we're going to have this b to the 4th power raised to the 3rd power. So 4 times 3 is going to be 12. So it's going to be b to the 12th power. Okay. We didn't use any of these other things yet. So it's going to be times 4 multiplied by this a squared multiplied by this b to the negative 6th power. All right. So let's go ahead and put these all together by multiplying. So first we're going to start off with this 27 times 4. 27 times 4 is going to be 108, so that's going to be our final coefficient here. Then multiplying a to the 15 by a to the 2, we can add 15 plus 2 to get 17, so it's going to be times a to the 17th power. And then finally multiplying b to the 12 times b to the negative 6th, we can add 12 plus negative 6, or 12 minus 6, and that's going to be positive 6. So we have b to the 6th power. So there you have 16 different practice problems. Hopefully you got used to them as we went, where we always took care of the power of a power property first with the parentheses, and then we used the product of power properties once there were no parentheses, and we could multiply the different pieces together that had the same common base. And when we did that, we added their exponents together as a nice little shortcut. So hopefully you found the video helpful. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up, and as always, keep up the great work that you're already doing, and I'll see you in the next one.